Okay, so I wrote a book about the first one of these Kerouac conferences, not this one, but in Boulder was the first time the old Allen Ginsberg put together one of these things and brought everybody under the planet to be at it. And as John Clellan Holmes said of it, we had come from all over the country, from all periods of Kerouac's life. This was his Boulder 82, the first time all of the beats got together in one place. And Holmes says, and more of us were together than had ever been in one place at one time before. And that was what this book was about, that I happened to hitchhike to as a 21-year-old in Boulder. So now here we are at Jack's thing. And at this part where Holmes has just given a writing workshop, and I'm mind blown. So I go out into the park to hang out, and sure enough, a professor guy who was at the same workshop comes walking along the path. Because it was kind of like this, I don't know if you guys have been picking up on this vibe here in Lowell, where like every time I go from point A to point B at anything around here, I meet some of you guys. And it's great, it's like we're the only people here. So it was kind of the same thing there. So we're hanging out, and me and the professor are talking, and then another couple come walking along. And I just thought, what the hell, let's have other people do the dialogue rather than me yammering on all day. So here we go. So this is me and the professor sitting on the porch or the bench in the park, and it's like midway into his riff.
Kerouac loved jazz so much. You can hear the music in his prose. When I was younger, I loved the stories. Now it's not so much the story. I relish the language. It's his voice, his command of his instrument. I know the book so well now. I just pick up one and flip to any page and start listening to his music. But what about you? Why are you here?
I gave him the nickel sketch backstory.
But why did you come halfway across the country to go to school on your summer vacation?
Okay, let's see. I love Kerouac's writing, like you said, and I began holding out my finger to start counting the ways. He writes about cool stuff. He was so influential to so many major people, you know, like Lester Bangs to Jerry Garcia. And he was writing about real things that happened. Like, it's not some fictional story set in some imaginary town. For one thing, it's usually either New York or San Francisco. So right there, that's cool. Or they're on the road. And there's a place, and that's a place I always want to be. But it's that he was there when everything happened in New York. Abstract expressionism, method acting, bebop, and he was the writer. And that whole era is fascinating to me. I think it's the coolest time in American history, other than maybe San Francisco in the 60s. But New York in the 40s and 50s, man, that's when it was happening. I live with Phyllis Condon, the widow of Eddie Condon, the jazz band leader, and she's totally with it. She knows more about what's going on in New York on a Saturday night than I do. And she talks about this cross-pollination a lot. How everybody hung out with everybody else in the village. The musicians and actors and writers and comedians and painters, and they all drank like fish. But it was this magical time, and Jack was there for all of it. Rebel Without a Cause, The Wild One. He was the writer's wing of the party, and it was a hell of a party.
That's what I was saying about Kerouac, being an entry to a whole other world, or a series of worlds.
Yeah, and there's that whole music thing, and how that goes both ways. On one hand, he's turned me on to Charlie Parker and Monk and all this stuff I don't know when I would have ever gotten around to. And then you can see how Springsteen or Dylan or Tom Waits or something are telling Jack stories about the same types of people. Like Springsteen's The River that just came out. That's Jack. So he isn't just turning me on to his music, he's turning me on to my music.
That's great. The door opens both ways.
Yeah, right. And that Jack was so confessional. Maybe it was his Catholic thing, I don't know. But he's so honest, and it's like he's a friend writing you a letter. And you get sort of adopted into the whole family, like Mamere and Gerard and Nin and all of that. But even more like Neil and Carolyn and Alan and Burroughs. Like, I can't go and read books by Holden Caulfield's characters. or Vonnegut's. But with Jack, just about every character in his own book has a bunch of them.
Right, that's great.
And just then, this couple came walking along. I'd seen them around. She was a real chatterbox, but was always had this quiet, serious guy with her. And she was wearing one of the conference t-shirts. Basically the poster with Jack's face and all the names, which had sort of become the colors for our crew. I never did get one, and they never gave me one. And they were like 25 bucks or something, and I was broke. But that'd be way too small for me by now anyway. So I said hi, and they came right over. And it was this cool thing that was happening where we were, all the kind of crazy summer camp together with all these wayward spirits who were drawn like sprinkled iron shavings from across the continent by the magnetic pull of Jack. And since there weren't that many students around this abandoned campus in the middle of the summer, it was really easy to talk to people. Nobody here but us freaks. Bob, the professional inquirer, asked why they made the trip. And right away, she was like, jibber jabber jabber julin.
You know, I read a lot of writers. I'm a big reader. And Jack Kerouac, well, his books, they have something I haven't found anywhere else. I love it, an opening to people. Yeah, people. We're always supposed to care for the least among us. But nobody really does that, not even in fiction. But Kerouac, even when he got famous, he didn't start hanging out with Dick Cavett and all them, but he would stay in flop houses and spend time with street people, real people, not phonies or posers. He was more like Jesus than all your Godspells and Jesus Christ superstars put together.
He listened to people.
Yeah, that's what I get too. You know, they're real people, not some fictional Hemingway lion hunter or something. Like, I'm taking ear training at NYU for music, but Kerouac is ear training for voices. Like, whenever I'm reading him, I get way more aware of the people around me. Like, every person is a character. Everyone is interesting in their own way. He makes your whole day like a novel or a movie. Like, everything's part of some grand story, and everybody you meet is in it.
Yeah, that's it. He was open to everyone. He was always meeting new people. He seems like he'd be fun to go out with. I mean, just to hang with, honey.
Did she drag you along on this?
I'm getting my master's at Boston College in American Lit.
Then he paused, hoping somebody would say something so he wouldn't have to keep talking, but nobody did.
I gave her on the road right after we met to see if we'd get along or not.
So you're the problem.
So you're the problem. What was it that got you into Monsieur Kerouac?
He asked, surgically cutting through the surface with his quizzical knife. And just like that, Quiet Man opened right up.
Okay, there's all kinds of escapism. Romance novels, Heinlein, Harlan Ellison, Stephen King, but Kerouac was writing about actually escaping. The same mundane existence that leads people to science fiction or pulp fiction or television, but Kerouac was writing about very real ways out. Like 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover, Slip Out the Back, Jack, and we all caught the concept, name check, and laughed. No. I think this is why he reaches so many people. And for so long, it wasn't just one book or one way out. He had the road.
This is his whole thesis.
Which is one very valid way out. Out of town, out of a lousy relationship, a bad job, it's a direction, right? But then there's the Dharma bums that points to the mountains, getting back to nature, go for a hike, get away. And then there's the whole escape through drinking and bar hopping in the subterraneans. And then there's the Everman fantasy of jumping on a ship out in the open sea, Vanity of Duluos. And there's staying at home and escaping through your imagination and childhood memories, Dr. Sachs. Or everybody wants to sneak away to a cabin in the woods with their friends like Big Sur. He offered all these different routes that if a reader was at all prone to his style, there was something that would speak to it.
That's good.
The professor said, quite seriously, academic to academic.
He's so often portrayed as this one-trick pony, this on-the-road guy.
Tell me about it.
Right. But how can you lump Visions of Gerard or Scripture of the Golden Eternity in with the Subterraneans or Visions of Cody? Or Old Angel Midnight with The Town and the City? If his name wasn't on the cover, you'd never believe those were written by the same person. So yeah, this guy's worth traveling across the country to get to know a little better and to actually meet the people he wrote about.
Yeah, and that escape thing is totally right on. Like, I live in Manhattan, and even there the road is an option. Like, you hear people say the road isn't really there anymore, but I live in the densest populated part of the country, and about a minute after you cross the GW Bridge, you can hang a right on the Palisades Parkway, and there's this beautiful tree-covered road through the forest alongside these cliffs. I mean, Greenwich Village, you can be on the open road in a matter of minutes and pulling into some roadside diner, listening to total strangers from another world, and order yourself some apple pie with ice cream. And just as they were laughing at my reference to Jack's favorite road food, the cassette in my cassette deck came to an end and loudly clicked off. And we all laughed some more at the synchronistic timing and knew class was over, and each of us returned to our regularly scheduled adventures.